Yesterday, I delivered a talk to the Make.com enterprise customers. They asked me to talk about our process of our company brain and why it works so well for finding the most high ROI automation use cases. And I introduced a concept we call cognitive offloading, which explains the order in which you have to implement automation to get the most profit in a new business. So they let me have the recording of that talk yesterday. So I hope you enjoy. Here is the whole video. I guess many of you guys, I used to, so I got into Integromat back in the day when it was called Integromat, and then Make, because a friend of mine just wanted to build stuff, right? He had a very frustrating business to run, and I thought I could help him, so I started doing it and got into working, doing this full time as an actual business for the last couple of years, right? And I used to really get frustrated with scope creep, or with clients saying, yeah, like now that I see this thing, I want this other stuff. It would frustrate us because we wanted to build it into the cost and things like that. And I perceived it to be frustrating for clients. And so I recently changed my mind on what scope creep means and what extra requirements and requests from clients mean. So hopefully this will be useful to you guys today, because I've heard everybody here is either like you're kind of directly involved in building stuff for stakeholders in your company, or maybe you're trying to make your company go faster. So that's the purpose of today. I hope you guys really get as much as possible. I would love to hear your questions and comments and things if something doesn't make sense, or you want me to go into more detail on a specific example of a concept, or share a story about a client where we applied this or had this happen. I think this concept, I think, captures a lot of, if I would have known this years ago, my life would have been so much easier building automations. So hopefully you get a lot of benefit from this. We can go to the next slide, Paula. Okay, so my background, I come from an automation background for manufacturing. So I just turned 40 this week, actually. So a long time ago, was building manufacturing automations for factories all over the world. I grew up in Canada, and so I've done work in North America, in Europe, and some of the systems I've built are, in China and things like that. So that's where I'm coming from, right? Is manufacturing. And now with OpsKing is like the stuff that I'm going to share with you today. I believe it really, really works. We have a lot of testimonials of people that are just like happy with the experience they had of working with us, but their business grew and like got easier to run, and they were able to make more profit as a result. And I truly believe it's not because we're better at like connecting modules in a Make screen. I think it really all comes down to what I'm going to share with you today, which hopefully will make sense. We can go to the next slide. A couple of really cool stories that I'm most happy with. So Binzi in the top right, she took her first holiday in 8 years. She completely ghosted us in Slack. We actually thought she was mad at us, even though she agreed to a testimonial, because she just didn't respond for weeks. And it was just because she took her first vacation ever. Taylor, bottom right, doubled his business in terms of revenue in a month. So he went from like about $2 million run rate to $4 million in a month. And the only thing he added was he took one part-time employee and made them full-time. And that was it, right? And one of my friends, Tom, in the left-hand side, he was the reason I started doing automation in the first place. He was on the verge of literally quitting his business because he just thought it wasn't scalable at all. He didn't see, and this is kind of like the purpose of what I want to talk to you about. He didn't see the ways that automation could help him, because he thought everything was just a bunch of management, right? Or a bunch of like coordination in his business. He thought he actually had like people problems, where like, oh, the people just aren't doing the thing that they should, right? And his business is now 10 times the size as it was. So he had a pretty small, he was like a freelancer with a couple of people to help him. Maybe it was like about $1 million a year, less, $100,000 a year. Now he's close to $1 million a year, just over $1 million a year. So anyway, I share that to share with you that I think the goal that I try to do is not just like build a bunch of tech and like put a bunch of things on the screen, but to really help people. It makes me feel good. It's selfishly from a business perspective, people pay you longer if you provide value to them as well. And so, yeah, I share that because hopefully you'll see this and believe what I'm about to tell you, or like take it on. So for me, and I know there was the poll here as well. For me, the things that have been the hardest about automation, or I think are hardest about automation in general, are not
like how do you connect API 1 to API 2, right? It's the human factor of talking to a customer or a person who's like, you feel like there's a way that their job could be easier or better, but you don't know, like there's like too many ideas and like which one do you put in order, or you build something and they say, oh, like there's like never ending changes, right? So, oh, now that I see this, can you add on this part? Can you add on this part? Or it's things like building an automation and just having it turn off because no one, like people said they wanted it, but like then you build it and then they say, oh, we changed our mind, whatever else. Or you have like data mistakes, or like the user just makes a mistake and it ends up breaking the automation, and then you have to like go and change it, and like with like a simple idea that takes way more effort to build than what you originally thought it should, because of you're always accounting for like the user messing up in some capacity, right? I used to be really, really frustrated with these effects. I thought these were all only coming up because I didn't do a great, like an absolutely perfect job of reading someone's mind, or asking them the exact perfect question, and like doing a ton of design up front on something that was kind of fuzzy. So anyway, I'll take a little pause point. Does that resonate with anybody else other than me, or am I the only one who's had some frustrating times with automation in the past? Anybody? Would love to hear like the kinds of systems you guys are building as well, that can help me target or like make the examples as specific as possible. So anyway, experience guys, would love to check in here.
Yeah, sometimes there's a bit of a lag between when they send the message and when we see it. Cool. But yeah, if you guys want to give Ryan some feedback in there to kind of help structure the rest of the session, please do so in the audience chat. First person to ask a question gets free unlimited services for the next decade. No, I'm kidding. That's not an offer. Do not take me to court on that one. All right, pretty quiet out there for now. We're gonna keep going. All right, so we can go to the next slide, or actually, I think maybe I can. Oh, here we go. I think I did it. Okay, so here's the big revelation, I think, that ties together some of like my intuition around what I should do, or like what our service really was. I thought for the longest time we were in the automation business, or like the building of dashboards, building of screens. We payroll stuff. Okay, cool. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica wins the prize. Manuel, awesome. So here's the biggest revelation that I found is clients would come in and they would say, I want automation. I want a client portal. I have these ideas. And sometimes they wouldn't have any ideas. They would just say, hey, like, my business is really frustrating to run. And like, I feel like it's a management problem or a people problem, or maybe it's impossible to automate, or maybe I just like need AI. And they would like have these desires, which were very, very valid and true. But the way they would talk about them was a little bit different. So what we do, when we work with a client, we don't do like a mega project. We don't say, cool, give me like $10 million and we'll go off in a dark room and like build everything, right? What we always do is we build intuitively, my co-founder, Tony, and I, we build things in sprints, okay? And for the longest time, we tried doing projects in the past. And what I realized is like people would say they wanted automation. What they really wanted was to remove thinking from their brain. They wanted to have their thinking externalized. They wanted to see that it was the thinking patterns in their brain were repeatable, and there was a logic behind them, and that they could trust another system. Okay, so this is kind of a conceptual idea, right? But I think the job of anybody building automation is offloading cognition, right? So if you take any repetitive thinking process, maybe that process is written down somewhere. Maybe there's an SOP, or maybe somebody could say, oh, when this event happened, I want to send an alert in Slack. Or when somebody books a calendar event, I want to put a thing in a spreadsheet. So they might be able to articulate their logic, or they might not be able to. But there's lots of use cases for automation that are beyond what most people would think of as automation, right? So I think when most people think of automation, they dream of this world where like they can wake up and they don't have to do any work.
at all. Things just like everything happens automatically, right? And they're at this other state where everything is being done manually, but they don't see that there's many steps between where they are right now and full automation. Okay, so if you try, I think if you try to build full automation, you're gonna have a bad time. However, there's lots of other information, like remembering what's true, trying to figure out what's higher priority than others, taking information and bringing it from one system to another, like copying and pasting information. Like that is all work that happens, or a reprioritizing work between people. Okay, so I think automation, if we were like to conceptualize what it is taking thinking that's going on in people's heads in a pattern and making a system that can do that thinking. Okay, and so there's like judgment could be automated, right? Prioritization could be automated. Maybe it's not like a massive thing with 57 modules in a make scenario. Maybe it's just ingesting a little extra piece of information from one system to another and calculating whether it's due sooner or later, right? And we can go to the next. Actually, let me see if I think I can do this. Oh, I did it right. Okay, cool. So my grand theory of automation, right, if there was one, is that, and I think if you try to outpace trust, if you build a system too fast, or the structure that you put in place doesn't allow people to transfer their trust first. If you kind of outpace that, you will have people that say, oh, no, like this isn't useful. I don't like this, even if it's something they said they wanted initially. Okay, so people won't trust the outputs. They'll turn off the automation, or you'll have a situation like if you try to build something on top of a very flexible project management tool where people don't trust truth. You guys have seen cases where if you build something on top of like ClickUp and you start to you do a bunch of automated actions and somebody like does something wrong in ClickUp or does something wrong in Asana or Basecamp or a Google Sheet or something, it'll break the automation. It's because they never trusted the fact that the tool would store truth. They never trusted truth. Okay. Does that make sense, by the way? Like, I know this is it's kind of a weird, your job. So if I were to like wrap it all up in one sentence, your job is not to build automations or like find use cases for automation. Your job is to find use cases for offloading cognition, right? Transferring mental work from a person's brain into a system. And that can be like creating an architecture where they can store information. That can be having an automation pull in information and just structuring it and showing like, yes, this system I built can be in charge of this information and you trust it and it's true. It's complete. And then once they trust it, then you can build on the dashboard or the alert or the generate the PDF and format the PDF from that information, or generate the invoice draft or generate the email. Okay. In the finance world, it might be like, if you want to build automations on top of finance data, like you want the finance data to be true finance data and to fully represent like the offers and the payments that are due and represent things like split payments or a payment that got deferred, but the service still continues, or a payment that is in a different currency if you need it to be in a different currency. Okay. So really it's about trust, which is kind of a crazy new idea. Okay. Comments, questions. Does that make sense? Is that completely crazy? Does everybody give me some I want to make sure that I don't I have a tendency sometimes to like go to academic. So I want to make sure that I keep it at the with relevant details and examples and stuff for you guys. Okay, so Julian, yes, it is true. So it is difficult to foresee all the ways it can go wrong. Here's an idea that's related to this, that relates to scope creep and this whole concept is trust and like mental cognition is removed in layers. So what we do, I'll walk you through like an example of our process. We start with visualizing cognition. So we say we'll build a flow chart, right? We build a flow chart and nothing happens. We're just going to build a flow chart and like it's going to just reveal to everybody what we think is true, and we're going to show it in front of everybody else, and everyone's going to see it, right? Okay. Then what always happens is people say, oh, now that I see this step happening, or like in a flow chart, that reminds me of this one time where the customer forgot this thing, or like this step was missed, or that reminds me of a problem we have in our process sometimes where things get stuck here and we have to kind of check on like this one part is a pain point for us, right? The next thing we do is we build a database and static interfaces where people can log in and just store information. They can store the list of clients. They can store the commercial offers that are, for those clients. They can store team members. They can say, great, like they get out of their head all the facts, right? We're not trying to like build the crazy automations first, but we have all the facts in one place and it's true, okay? The next thing we do is we always know that when people say that, they go, oh, I would want to see this piece of info, like this column on the left-hand side compared to this column because this one piece of information is most important. Or, hey, there's another category that we use to classify our team members or our clients or our payments or our projects or, the work that we have. But now that I've offloaded like this layer of cognition, I noticed the next layer. Okay. So the key thing with knowing the use cases is you kind of don't have to expect that you will be able to figure out the entire list of use cases all at once. The way that we found works really well is you offload just like the first layer, the first most obvious layer. You show people like, yes, this new system can be trusted with this basic part. It's almost like meditating or like going for a walk, or like you're like in the shower and you come up with great ideas in the shower. It's because your mind is calm. Okay. So what we're trying to do is like model that in a tool, right? So first, okay, yes, I've offloaded truth. I trust that the system can hold truth. Then it knows the next thing, right? So for, okay, so Julian, yes, we do use it in our sales process. So we share this idea heavily in sales and also on like our ongoing services. Joshua. So Manuel, here's the thing, it is saving time, right? Because if you think about work, so Manuel asked, said that in my company, we see automation primarily as a way of saving time. So offloading cognition is fresh as a concept. Yeah, so a lot of people see automation as saving time. We actually, the way I'll share the next thing. So here's our sequencing, right? Oh, hold on. Yeah, so process data, prioritization, clustering, KPI, like grouping things together and saying, hey, like these two things are the same, like follow the same process. Prioritization, right? So this is all thinking, right? So if I think about the process that I follow to, make lunch, well, what I do is not just the actual chopping and like cooking process that is the time suck. It's also figuring out what I want to have for lunch, figuring out if like looking in the fridge and seeing if I have the ingredients, wondering like, well, does this go with that other thing? Or like, should I maybe include this other thing instead? So there's like the decision of figuring out what I should do, right? And in every company, it's not just the typing on a keyboard that takes the time. It's the person typing on the keyboard, thinking they finished the work. And then as they're going, they're like second guessing themselves. They're maybe asking their colleague for clarification to say, hey, like I don't have this information that I need to do this deliverable. Maybe they'll like finish it and they like look at it again themselves, look at it again. So there's the time of like typing on a keyboard, right? I would make the guess that for any company, any task in the world that's knowledge work, typing on the keyboard is not the thing that takes the longest time. It's everything around that, right? So you can do things like you can take the contents of the deliverable, you can scan it with AI, and you can tag the mistakes that you think were made to give someone confidence that they can move forward, right? Or you can classify work saying, hey, this one is due sooner. We're going to automatically classify this based on the priority. You can pull in stats from another tool to give somebody confidence that, yes, I can move forward. You can make a client portal that shows the client their deliverables so they don't interrupt your account managers, right? So all of these thinking is saving time. Maybe somebody can't articulate it. They don't define it as time. But for every task somebody describes as a task that takes time, there's the execution of the task, but there's the figuring out what task to do, getting motivated to do the task, wondering if you have a plan to do the task in an efficient way, wondering if how you know when the task is done. So yeah, I think the saving time thing is a really, really good point, because it's an obvious idea, oh yeah, obviously we would save time with automation. But I think people don't fully realize all the different ways that one could save time, right? Or what time means. Time is second guessing yourself. Time is wondering what to do next, right? If you've confidence you've done something, again, if you've done something habitually, you're much, much faster. And it's the execution time hasn't changed really. It's the rest of it that you have mental models around. Okay. Julian, how do you explain to people in simple terms? That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure out what the simplest way to explain this is, which is one of the reasons why I'm here, trying to practice with you guys as well. Yeah, so cool. Love it. Yeah, user flow. Yeah. Okay, Jessica, user flows are so important. The user will always try some random action. That is only possible if your system allows it. So one of the things, Jessica, thank you for that. If somebody asks somebody in our team, hey, can you automate this thing on top of Google Sheets? Everybody in our team will say no. They will know that I will tell them no. We will not do it as a company. And one of the reasons is because if it's possible for the user to do something that's outside of the bounds of commercially what's allowed in the business to happen, then if anything is possible, your automation is impossible to build, right? So we always start with building a relational database that locks down what can occur, what a user can do, and we restrict it to what is commercially possible in the business, right? So we have a client now. They sell SaaS software to local businesses effectively, and they have different modules. We know that they have a company, and the company can have a contract, and the contract can be 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and that contract can include one or more modules, which each have their own independent start date. We know those things are possible, and so one of the things that you have to think about is every single stage has to be in the right sequence, and it has to build on the next thing. Okay, so if you don't know the process, if the process isn't externalized, and you try to build a system before you have the process externalized, then you will build a system that's the wrong system. If you have a relational database, for example, we use Supabase a lot, right? So Supabase, Airtable, whatever. If you have a database that doesn't represent the structure, if it's too flexible, it will make it possible for a user to make a mistake, right? If it's too locked down, people will try to bypass it and they'll never adopt it. And if it doesn't represent the model of how the natural templates and instances of how the business operates commercially, then it won't be trusted as quickly. So it'll be harder for people to use, even though everything is possible. So that's the big thing is with building on this, the effect you get is you sequence things that the users trust the system, and then they realize, they give you feedback. They say, oh, can you reorder these columns, because I would want it to be in a different order, because it's a little bit easier for me. Or can you also add an automation to do this? I see how my thinking is now structured. Can you add an automation to help this one step go faster, right? So cool. Yes. The automation. So cool. Arcaduz. Sorry, I'm butchering your name. Offloading cognition KPI. Yeah. So the offloading cognition KPI that we use primarily is first is top line revenue, right? Top line revenue and profit. We always start with, if somebody comes to us, we'd always say, hey, listen, I'm ignoring your team for now. What I primarily want to do is give the owner confidence that they have the ability to scale and have more customers. And so we would get it, like, so we would stop the owner worrying about things first. And so really our like revenue is our benchmark. And the reason why revenue is our benchmark, or like, top line growth is our benchmark, is because if you save time for the team, who's to say they wouldn't just take that time and go surf Facebook, right? So we just say, hey, listen, like if the owner can scale, then wonderful. And that's our benchmark for if we've done a good job, right? So this is a little bit different. Like I think mostly people come and say, hey, like I want to save my team. My team is doing this manual task. I want to save time. And we don't start there. But sometimes, or oftentimes, when they say, I want to automate this thing for my team, what they really mean is I don't have visibility that my team is going to be on time with this deliverable. Like this deliverable is taking longer than it should. And then once we fix all the other things, like their team just magically goes faster, or we're able to measure their team's performance and say, well, like this one team member is 5 times faster, or like 5 times more productive than this other one. So like that tells you where the problem is, right? It's either one step of the process, a training thing, or they need to just be let go, right? So we improved top line. So this is like things like churn fixing. By the way, trust, this transfers as well for clients, like our clients, or like your business's clients if you have a service business, because if a client is worried and they're like they're not sure where they're going to get a deliverable on time or not, they're not going to stay with you for very long, right? So one of the first things we like to do is think about how we can increase trust and cognitive offloading of our clients. And so I can talk through some of these bullet points. I don't want to get like too in the weeds here, but if you guys want to hear about this, I can talk through it. We have a client who we built we like to build dashboards that our clients can show their clients to say, hey, listen, you've spent this much money with us. We have done these deliverables. These are the results that we've created for you, and allow our clients to be fully transparent. And then also build other dashboards where we can show the connection between the deliverables that our clients have created for their clients and the results. So like, hey, I have a magic money machine. You give me $10, I give you 100. Do you want to give me 20 and I'll give you 200? Like that kind of transaction. And so again, that's also a form of cognitive offloading, right? Of our clients going like, hey, listen, like I can make a stronger sales argument, right? I can make more money, right? So the way that we think about success here in terms of which use case do we go for first, it's always if we can improve top line. Second, in saving owner time, right? Maybe that's through automating their teams. They don't have to hire or train their team, reducing interruptions. We want to give the owner of the business as much mental clarity as possible, because I know that once we're done with like fixing obvious churn things, if we can secondly save the owner mental processing, then, or their kind of key team members, right? Then we know they will make decisions that or will grow the business, right? No matter what. Like we just have to help them relax and they will come up with good ideas on their own. We don't have to do anything intentional. And then only last do we say, hey, you've got 10 extra team members doing this role. I think we could eliminate the whole team, right? And we've done some of that. We've done number 3 kind of accidentally from time to time. But our primary focus is just growing the business, right? Does that make sense? Cool. Lovely. Love the questions. These are great questions. Cool. So anybody have any questions on like, I know this is like, there's a couple of ideas I think that are counterintuitive to how I think a lot of people think of automation as like, you're building this thing as fast as possible, or you're trying to save a bunch of time. Whereas if you look at it from the lens of, we want to save the owners of the company mental processing, we want to recognize the fact that like team execution, like things that a team is doing, it's more than just the execution. There's like all the like invisible thinking and like wondering and second guessing and maybe not being clear on priorities. The cool thing too is like this just happened like literally a few hours ago for me for our video editor. So I'll tell you guys a quick story. We have a YouTube series. It's called Inside Ops Kings, and we have a video editor in our office in Zagreb, and he runs around and films stuff that's happening and talks to our team and says, hey, like, tell me what you're building. Like, it's a company vlog, and we've done 11 of them so far, right? And the problem is this video editor, he's kind of junior. So he's really, really good at like editing video, but we have just figured out like our process for inside ops things, right? And so, he sent me a Slack DM. He's like, hey, Ryan, like, here's what I'm working on today. And I was like, man, I'm getting all these kind of like interruptions, and I wanted to have I wanted him to execute faster without asking me for like help and clarification and stuff all the time. So here's what we did. I told him to make a spreadsheet and put one row per Inside Ops Kings episode and put one column per stage or like deliverable he had to do to make an episode, to produce an episode, right? So it was like, film this call, film 3 calls, and we had him put like the name of the call, or like the kind of the topic of the call. Film our team call, which happens on Wednesdays, and then edit this thing, check for Ryan for QA, pick the title, pick the thumbnail, and then the date of the publishing, right? And there's no automation there, right? But just by structuring his thinking, it removes some of my thinking, it removes some of his thinking. And if I wanted to have 3 episodes a week or 10 episodes a week, I would have to break it down into those stages anyway, right? So you can, for even things that are like, this is a spectrum, right? And I'll show you guys a table that we kind of follow. Actually, I'll just skip to here. This is a spectrum, right? At the top, you have just the process is happening kind of consistently. You kind of have a process. And then you get into like declaring what the process is. You like organizing the process. Like if there's multiple things, like how do you prioritize them? How do you group them into similar buckets? How do you have prioritization and statistics and whatever else? And only then do you have things like the whole thing is happening automatically, right? So this is all I have. I can share if you guys want me to go into crazy nerdy detail, I'm happy to do that. But this is all a spectrum. It's not just can it be automated or can it not be? But how do you start from a very, very messy progress, or like, you just had a goal, you don't even know how to do it, all the way through somebody knows how to do it, so they can repeat the process. You can write down some of the practices they follow to like it's fully structured, to it's fully structured in a flowchart, and there's like multiple people to help, to you can have some QA steps and some like reassurance steps if there's multiple checks. Cool. Paula, yes. Questions, let's do it. I've been talking for a while, so hit me with some.
No, sorry, I was just encouraging people to start to ask questions now that we're getting to the last couple of slides. So sorry, I was trying to cut you off.
Yeah, all good. So I'll share one more concept, right? So a lot of times, I'm sure for all of you, you will have lots of ideas in your business. People will ask you for things, or your team will have ideas like, oh, can we do this? Can we do this? What we like to think about is we gather as many ideas as we can at the beginning, right? Because some of those ideas end up being super high priority early. Some of these ideas are, and it's not that they're bad ideas, they just are more relevant or would be better ideas or better use cases for you as your process matures, right? So if I think about the example from today for our Inside Ops Kings like editing process, eventually I might have a thing that scans all of our Fireflies calls, our like transcripts from internal calls, and automatically picks the title, and automatically has an AI generated thumbnail concept, and automatically puts together a timeline that's like super compelling. Okay. That could be an idea that could, like, you could imagine automating that, right? There's like, grab a Fireflies webhook, parse it with OpenAI or something, and like stick it in. Like, this is logically, it makes sense, right? However, for that to occur, what I would have to know is like, well, how many Fireflies calls do I need per episode? Like, that is a question that I would have to answer if I was making that automation tomorrow. I would have to answer, like, what is a good title? Right? I have 10 examples, but like, presumably, there's going to be refinements to that process that I make. I would have to answer, what is the order of shots right? And maybe that would vary based on whether the call was a team call, a client call, how early in the design process we were for a client, right? So if you think about like the process of like what you would have to do, you guys all know how to build automations. Like think about the process you'd have to do to design the actual flow and the logic and the conditional decisions that you would do. What you could do is start to build some of that logic into your system even before it's automated. And what the benefit of doing that is you can start to test out. You can show the users, whoever is using your system, your tool, right? You can show the users like, hey, this is what I think we're doing. And you will get they will offload some of their cognition into that tool because they can all of a sudden it thinks a little bit for them. You will find out from them if there's other things they feel like are important to include as ingredients to produce the thing, the deliverable that you need, right? And you will de-risk yourself from fixing your automations all the time and like redoing work, right? So just because every idea you could ever have exists in a spectrum. The thing that will save you a ton of time in terms of rework, and the thing that will make you and your business a lot of money is by proper sequencing and proper pacing, so you don't outpace trust with users. Okay. So anyway, that's this. I have I can go super nerdy on all this kind of stuff. If you guys have questions, would love to hear any specific questions. Manuel, I'm just reading this. Okay. In my experience, do you sell better automation as an added value, or are they willing to pay an additional fee? We sell the outcome. So when a company comes to us, we say, hey, if everything was working perfectly, how much could you grow? And then we map backwards to that, right? So we have a dev team, right? So we build stuff. But there's some companies that just want to pay us for consulting, right? They want to have us conceptualize their thinking, and they have like an in-house IT team or a dev team that does it all. So it's hard for me to say honestly, because like I think we're still a pretty young business. Like when ask me when I've had 1,000 customers, and I'll be able to tell you like I think with more certainty. It's hard for me to say exactly. Here's the other thing as well is like I don't know if I can honestly tell you like why people buy. People might buy because they heard about us from 3 of their friends, or because they see our like YouTube content or Twitter content, say, hey, these guys are like, they have a massive audience. The ideas they share are cool. And then when they come to a sales call with us, they would buy regardless of what we said, right? So I don't know if I could tell you honestly with a lot of certainty, like what the buying triggers are. I can tell you that I'm excited about this concept because it more closely represents what we actually do, right? So if sometimes I'll share one thing. So if a customer comes to us and says, hey, we have this document that has very specific requirements for an automation we want to build, I would tell them to their face, like, I think that's wonderful. I think you should go to Upwork and find a really cheap person, and like they will build your automation. And if you want to automate, please go elsewhere. If you want to make more money and grow, and you're willing to sort of accept the fact that this is how we will do it, like these are the Ops Kings standards for work. That's kind of what we do. I'll tell you like one thing so I'd say like the things that are consistent about how like the offer we make are we work in sprints. So we don't just go in a dark room and like build a bunch of stuff all at once, because like, and I think this concept that I shared with you today explains why we intuitively felt like that wasn't the best way to do it. So that's one thing. We build our own. It's like we don't build on a flexible data source. So like Ops Kings will never build an automation that's based on data that lives in Google Sheets. We will never do that. We will never do the same if it's in ClickUp. I've had customers. There's a funny story. We had a guy. I made a tweet about ClickUp. So the fastest way to 50K a month is to delete any automation tools, delete Make, delete Zapier, delete NNN, delete ClickUp, and just go back to a Google Sheet and whatever. And then when that breaks, then you build something like robust. And this guy, he disagreed with me on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, ClickUp is amazing. I love ClickUp." And I said, "Hey, like, that's cool. Like, some people around this, this particular size, like, have problems with it, but like, I truly believe if nothing is broken, like, don't like, if you're still scaling your business and everything is going great, like, if operations are going smooth, there's no need to change tools for no reason, right?" And like an hour later, he booked a call with me. I was like, this is the same guy from Twitter that was like just arguing in my face about how amazing ClickUp was and how much he loved ClickUp. And that was February. And now his business is 5 times the size without adding any team members. His team is bored. And so what we did is we replaced, turns out ClickUp was not as good as he thought it was, because we were able to point out the fact, like, all the use cases he was missing from having a very flexible structure of his data. And this is like, as of today, they grew their business, they grew their customer base. There's 1,500 tickets a month that we were able to completely automate because we were able to tag it and categorize it. We knew how many tickets there were, and his team was able to quickly solve tickets. They used to do Discord and ClickUp. And yeah, now his business is making several $1 million more, like $5 or $6 million more per year. Because of that. So in terms of, like, I can say there's certain things I know for sure that we offer that have served us well. Yeah, I know that was a very, very long-winded answer, Manuel, but hopefully that made sense. By the way, here, guys, I wanted to show you something. So when we work with a customer, we map out their process in a visual format like this, and we put in, when there's an improvement idea that the client mentions, they're like, "Oh, here's like a very specific thing that we have as a request." We would put this like little yellow box there. We put these little gray boxes where there's like context about how the process operates that is relevant to how we would build the system. Okay. So this is the first step. I think anybody can do this for your own company. I think it works really, really well. People hire us to do this. I think it works really, really well to have somebody who's an outsider to your company do this. And I think it works very, very well if you have somebody who's programmatically inclined or like mathematically inclined, because they'll put it together in like very, very rigid. You can't just say like, "Yeah, we do the process and it works pretty good." So when we do this, I think the things that make us successful at doing this well are, we hire engineers to do this. Myself and another engineer at the company, we do this together. We have 2 people doing this. So 2 people is I think better than 1. And outsider, I think, is better than insider, because you have the sort of, you can ask, like, we ask dumb questions, right? So I think anybody can replicate this. It's a flow chart, but that's conceptually how we do it. And my co-founder, Tony, has a YouTube video. If you search for Tony Debelich, and then process mapping, like, there's a 20-minute video where he explains in more detail how we do this as well. I think this is a really, really good first step. This is what we do for all of our customers. This process is one of the reasons why Make reached out and said, "Hey, can you please talk about this?" And I think the reason a flowchart is pretty simple, right? Like, flowchart doesn't sound like you're doing much, but when you express the logical or like the algorithm of a process, and you show people like, "Hey, there's a set of rules that you follow in your brain, even if you can't articulate those rules, like, I'm pulling them out of you and kind of asking for clarification along the way." If you can show people like, "Hey, there's logic to your thinking," then it becomes much more obvious when they say, "Oh, now that I see the logic of my thinking, I want this automated," right? Because they see the consistency. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of all. That's all I had for today, actually. Is there anybody else who has questions, or Paula, if there's like normal stuff you do to wrap up or whatever?
Yeah, no, thanks first of all, thanks so much, Ryan. I think this was probably the most interactive session we've ever had. So
cool, good.
And The only other thing from my side is, well, first of all, now's a good chance to submit any last minute questions. We have a bit of extra time left. If none come through in the next minute or so, we'll probably just call it early. But the only other thing is, please submit your feedback to us. You guys are probably tired of hearing this, but it's a growing program, and the only way that we can grow effectively is listening to your feedback. What's working, what's not working, what you like, what you don't like. So please, there's a link in the audience chat, and you'll also be prompted at the end, but please submit your feedback to us. And it looks, Ryan, like we have another question. Let me make that public.
So cool. Okay. Okay. I once read that in order to build an automation, you have to have a process fully ready and working. Then you can think about automation. But in my opinion, that landscape has changed entirely from my experience. Companies have messed up process. So I think the thing I would think about is like, it's not automation or not automation. The thing that I've found works really, really well. And I think this model makes sense, right? It's really like their thinking goes from, I just figured out this goal is important, and like maybe I have a process internally that I follow to consistently create the outcomes. If you recognize it for what it is, that if somebody who's doing the process themselves, they may have a set process they follow that they can document for you if you asked, but it's much more likely they have a series of like mental programs they remember. They're like, oh yeah, when Paula, emails me about this other thing, like I remember that I should ask to talk to Jordan, and Jordan's going to tell me the answer. And when it's Tuesday and it's sunny, I do this. And when I eat a sandwich, I brush my teeth after because the bread. Like, so people mistake like the repetitive patterns in their head for process. And so that's the kind of the messy part. But you can still work with that, right? So you can take somebody with a messy process in their head they remember and make a process map like this. And when you make a process map like this, they say, oh yes, that they recognize that they can give you feedback and say, oh no, you missed it, you missed a piece. But they also recognize that they have more trust in the process that they have in their head than otherwise. And so they move closer to automation, right? And then after we do something like this, what we always do, we do a database, right? So we say, cool, here's a process, here's the objects in that process that are like where the properties are all the same and the processes that these objects follow are all the same. And then so we can go from here to a database, and database is closer to automation. And we start to like say, hey, we have a database, let's build an automation to pull in data from an email sending tool or your ad platform, or scrape a website, or pull in data from like an email that we're processing with like a regular expression. And so you can go from like a process map like this to a database. And so it's really like I think what you have to do is recognize that when someone says, I have a process and I want to automate, it's not that their process is messy or bad, or automation is good, or they're in one place or the other. It's like you could get them to a place where the process is fully automated through stages that number one is more tech. So it allows the tech to think for them. Like you have a formula that can auto prioritize stuff. But then also is something they can continually add trust to. So one of the problems is people start to build, they build like a spreadsheet or something, and then the spreadsheet gets really, 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 really messy, and it starts to like break. And so people think automation can't help them, or is like not going to work. So it's I would say I totally agree with you in terms of like your assessment. I don't think it's companies do mess up processes, and I think it's not that the company itself is broken and there's nothing that can be fixed about it. I think what it's kind of like it's an architecture conversation, right? So you do unfortunately, I think, need somebody at the company who has bought into this whole idea of like doing systemization in stages where you do it in a paced way. and wait for trust to occur in the system before building the next thing. The thing that we've found, and we have to kind of educate companies on the most, is when they come in and say, hey, I want all the automation, we say, cool, like, you want all this stuff, like, do you, like, a very basic question is like, do you want to see it in the middle? Like, do you want to like use it now, or do you want to just pay us a ton of money up front and then not see anything for 6 months or 12 months? And they go, oh, no, I want to see it in the middle. Okay, cool. So you want to see in the middle? Great. Like, we propose that we would show you to you in these stages, right? And we propose that we would account for the fact that you're going to give us feedback, and like, this is why. I think most people that have hired or built a team or whatever recognize the fact that you can't just like expect a person who's new in a role, even, right, to just read your mind from the get-go. You'd kind of start them off at like a junior role, and then they have some stuff, and then they take on more responsibility as you trust them, right? And automation is the same.
Yeah, I got something to add, Ryan, to this topic.
Cool.
So I'll give a good story of kind of a broken process for prior to when I joined Make. I was doing consulting work. And we had a sales team, and I was building out a CRM for them and an automated process that we happened to use Monday. But one of the issues that the sales team had, this is prior to even building out this new CRM, is one of the salespeople would poach deals from other sales reps, and they would act like, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Here you go. Have it back." So it was only she just every time she would act so innocent. So one of the processes that I put into place is I disguised the automations as software updates from these different systems. So I would brand notifications as those software platforms. So the automation was actually created by me, but it would be like,
but it looked like it was coming from like Monday, or
it looked like it came from Monday. Or I would add a button in the front end as a field, and it would say, hey, Monday just added this new feature where you can push this button here, and this is what it'll do. And then I'll create like these subtle permissionings in the system. So if they didn't use the proper form, they would get an email from, Monday, the software, saying, hey, you didn't use the proper form.
Right. Hey, there was an error in your system. Look, it's not from your boss. It's from Monday. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so the one thing that I built out was they would enter a new lead in the system. It would verify that the lead was not used, and if it was taken, we had a SendGrid account that we had gotten, and it was perfect. But I would automate an email that would go from the rep that put the lead in to the system to the other salesperson, saying, "Hey, I just entered this lead in. You should take a look at that," and CC their manager at the same time.
Right, right. That's funny. Yeah,
everybody was super incentivized to put their leads into the system and use it and follow up, because they knew that was going to protect everything.
This is I love this. So like there's one of the concepts I think this is kind of like, so there's KPIs. You guys know, like, okay, you can make a chart or like make a bar graph, make a whatever to track, like, is the performance getting better for the team, right? Or is the close rate going up, right? Another kind of group of KPIs, and there's 4 types of KPIs that I think this is from Gartner. There's descriptive KPIs, which things that describe what is true. There's diagnostic KPIs. There's like, hey, this is the close rate, but this is the close rate like by day of the week or time of day, or like closer, so you know if there's reasons why the trend is the way it is. There's predictive KPIs. So like, we think Jordan is the best closer in the company, right? And there's prescriptive KPIs. So like, we know Jordan is the best closer. We think the next lead is like, we are telling the system like the lead will go to Jordan. And so you can imagine how like calculating everybody. Okay, so those KPIs, it's not from me, it's from Gartner. And there was another type of KPI that I kind of added to this type, which is a motivational KPI. So like, you can use, like, what I love about that story is like, you can, if you understand psychology, all of a sudden like the automation possibilities go up, because you're not like tied to, like, oh no, I guess people made a mistake, there's nothing I can do. You're like, oh, well, if we add this mechanism that accounts for how people will actually behave and how people actually think, then all of a sudden we get the output that we want. All right. So I think this is that's a clever, I like the, like, not artificial. It's a real notification, but it's like a sort of
it's just subtle hand slapping. And one last thing too is I use Make to do data audits, right? So like if you've got an applicant tracking software, right, and you need to do job matching based on zip codes, right? Wouldn't it make sense to understand, does all of our candidates have zip codes, right? So I will do a query using Make to see, oh, hey, only 50% of our candidates have zip codes. And I provide a report of the data because I was able to pull it from any system I want to leadership showing, hey, we could build some automations around fixing the data to make sure it's really, really solid prior to building other automations.
Right. It kind of tells you like, so you don't have to, the use cases for automation aren't just like doing the work for people. It's like giving people certainty that this is the next decision, or giving people like the other one that's like kind of cool is like, we use this internally, like generating, like using an automation to generate a test plan or development plan, like a checklist for somebody that's customized so they can go more quickly through the process and kind of plan for somebody. So there's lots of ways to like take thinking and like use automation for like helping thinking that's above and beyond just like actually doing the job. Paula, you were going to say something.
Guys. Yeah, no, it looks like we're about up on time. I think we do still have a couple people listening. But yeah, just real quick for whoever can stay on. I don't know if we actually got to the part 2 of that question that says, I think that today the process is often being fixed as the automation is being created. How do you deal with that? And I feel like that a little bit.
So here's the thing as well, is like sometimes like you can build it on like if it's a very high volume process and you're like not sure about all the nuances of the process, you can use automation to kind of like see like, oh, the automation didn't give me what I wanted in that case. Therefore, like I'm more aware of the nuance, right? So I'd say I wouldn't think about it as like fixing the process. It's like people becoming aware of nuance that was in their head that they didn't state to you, and also people identifying more nuanced patterns as they don't have to think about the basics anymore. So like here's like a kind of parallel is when I used to do all the development, and when we hired developers to do the development for me, and all I was doing is the kind of the product design of like what we would build and the QA, I got better at product design and QA because I wasn't dealing with like connecting to like APIs together. So it's it's not that like, I think you got to be like kind to the people that you're asking, process questions to, and also kind to yourself to say, like, if it was Jordan, for example, like if he had somebody saying, "Hey, Jordan, your automation it didn't work in this case." It's not that Jordan didn't ask the perfect question in that case or forgot. It's like, hey, the person, after some of their job was easier, they had the time to realize an improvement that wasn't even conscious before. So the way that we deal with that phenomenon is through the exact same thing, where we recognize that like, hey, we have to build this in stages and allow people to use it, offload some cognition, and we know we want that. We want the process to evolve over time. Like that does evolve. I think if you looked at like some of our systems that we've now had in place for clients, and you looked at the recording of their initial company brain calls, you would say, oh, it's the same process. But the reality is it's not. It's much more rigid and faster and higher quality. It's like the same offer, the same business, right? Same people. But the way, it's like skill, right? Like I'm the same person as I was when I was 20, but like there's skills I have now that I didn't have before. And there's probably hints of like, for anybody watching, like, when Paula was 15, there was like probably like personality traits that you had or skills that you had, where if somebody like your, whatever, close friends that have known you for a long time, they would be able to recognize the parallels. And it's not you're not getting fixed. You're just, you're getting better at a base level of skills, and you're building on the next level skill, and you're building on the next level skill. And so I think process is the same.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. Again, most interactive session we've had, and
cool. Go team.
the first one to go over as well, which is good.
All right. Well, I talk a lot, so I mean, it's probably like, yeah.
All good.
Cool.
But yeah, I think now's probably a good time to call it. We're about 6 minutes over. But thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us, and Jordan, as usual.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I hope everyone has.
If anybody has follow-up questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. Send me an email. My email is pretty easy to guess. So, yeah, if you have follow-up questions, you can always ask. Happy to chat. Cool.
Thanks so much. All right.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
See ya.